right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with our community calendar review. If anybody has anything they would like to share, or events going on or activities or anything you want us to know about, y'all can go ahead and share those now. I don't think we had any added to the agenda this time, so we'll just take a few minutes now and share anything that y'all want the full group to know about.
I would like to share something. I'd like to invite everyone to come to our networking group. We have a monthly community networking group where we have nonprofits and for-profit businesses that join us, and it would be a wonderful opportunity for you to be able to tell business owners and people in the community what you're doing to make a difference and how we can help as business partners, how we could step in and help you. It's totally free. It's 1 hour from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. the first Wednesday of each month. And we meet at the Chamber of Commerce in Elizabethton, which is in downtown Elizabethton on the last block. So I would just like for you all to come and tell us what's going on with you and help us share your message.
Thanks, Kathy. If you all get the Carter County Drug Prevention newsletter in your email, we actually linked Northeast Community Credit Union's website in that newsletter this month, because I think a lot of people don't know how many amazing things the credit union does in the community. So definitely check that out and see all the awesome things that they have going on and the way that they support all of our awesome nonprofits and businesses in the community. So thank you, Kathy. Anybody else have something they want to share?
I'll just share really quick that Tennessee Voices is offering parenting classes that are free of charge, and they are virtual. Anyone in the state of Tennessee can access the classes. The ones that we have scheduled right now are Common Sense Parenting, which is a 6-week course, and it's going to be in Spanish. I don't have one in English on the books at the moment. But I do have 2 trauma-informed parenting strategies, which is a 5-hour one-time course that focuses on children who have experienced trauma and how parents can parent them. And I will add all those Eventbrite links to the chat box as I find them. Thank you.
Thank you, Lupe. Anybody else have something to share? Okay, well, we'll go ahead and jump into our sharing sessions. We have a couple of people who are going to share today. I am incredibly excited for Tia Hughes to share with us about Bridge to Shore Recovery. This is a new program that is so important in our community and really going to be beneficial to lots and lots of people. So I will turn it over to Tia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tia, and I am one of the co-founders of Bridge to Shore Recovery. I just want to say thank you for letting me be here today to kind of share this stuff with you. So we are extremely new and in our infancy. So being able to have the opportunity to kind of get the word out of what we're trying to build and what we're trying to do is a big deal. So what Bridge to Shore is, we want to provide a path for women in recovery to heal, rebuild self-esteem, and repair relationships through connecting them with 12-step recovery and partnered resources and housing. Our biggest focus wants to be on women's housing. To be honest, kind of my backstory of where we come from, me and my co-founder, Brittany Horton, are both in long-term recovery, and we were driving one day and was talking about the options for women and women with children when they get out of the treatment center. And so it was when we were talking about these options, there would only be, a couple things that we could come up with. There wasn't like this big, huge slew of things of where we could send these women when they're coming out of treatment centers to be able to help them. And so we had talked about this and talked about it and talked about it, and the men's housing in the area is really flourishing, and we wanted to bring that opportunity to women, and then eventually women with children. So we just kind of started doing it. Both of us have this dream to see women be able to get out of the treatment centers or come out of jail or prison and literally get their lives back together. And that looks a lot like pushing them to find jobs, partners with people to get them jobs, pushing them to be able to be productive members in society again, to build that respect. So to be honest, right now, some of the things that we're able to do, so we can find women housing, because we don't technically have our first house open yet. However, we're pushing for it, and we're going to have some community events coming up. So we're able to do peer support. We're able to do family support services, employment services, and we've built relationships with the local treatment centers here in East Tennessee and kind of down towards Knoxville, to be able to get women into treatment. So really it's just a phone call for us to be able to help these women and go and pick them up and take them. So we really want to be that hand that they hold as they're walking through this. So some of our needs right now. So I'm going to put our flyer in the chat box here in just a few minutes. So we're having our first event June the 18th. And we're having it at Boones Creek Christian Church. And what we're doing is a cornhole tournament. So we're going to be serving the community hot dogs and popcorn. And then you can also register. I think we're going to do $25 entry fee for a cornhole tournament, and kind of try to bring the community together and talk and discuss and all the things as we're trying to reach our goal to get our first house. We have a lot of other halfway houses that are going to come and hang out with us. So if you all would like to come and meet the people, we'll also have some other nonprofits there, kind of shaking hands. And to be honest, a lot of us in the recovery community are extremely competitive. So the goal is to let's see who can win the prize at the end. So we're going to do 2 basket giveaway for the winners of the tournament. And we've got just different things donated from different stores and things like that in the area. So it would be great if you all could come out and support us. That would be absolutely wonderful. We'll kind of be located to the left side of the church, closer to the highway. You shouldn't be able to miss us. There'll be cornhole boards everywhere. That's what we're trying to bring in right now is feminine hygiene products. And we're also, looking for things. So if you can make donations to be able to get some of these girls in treatment, big books, or any type of recovery material would be wonderful. We're also, over the next few weeks, are going to start taking in donations like couches and washers and dryers and things like that, so we can start building things to be able to put in our first houses. The first houses that we do plan on opening are going to be just solely focused on just straight women. And then eventually we'll move into a kind of a women and children's program type house. So where we're looking at not just the mamas getting to recover, but we're looking at hopefully getting to offer prevention classes and things like that for the kiddos, so that they can also recover. From my own experience, I had to walk my daughter through recovering when I come into sobriety, and that was kind of difficult because I didn't really know what to do. So my goal is to be able to help these women, not only help themselves, but help their children in the same role. I think that's really all I have. Like I said, I'm gonna put mine and Brittany's contact information in the chat. And then I'm also going to put our flyer. So if you would like to distribute it or come and hang out with us, that would be great. I will give you all the free, I know. All the popcorn. Do you have a question? No?
I have a
thought
question.
I saw-
Yes,
ma'am.
Where exactly is the first house that you're planning on putting together for the women and children?
So we're looking at a couple different places, to be completely honest. I just want it to be in the Tri-Cities area. So we've got kind of a look at Kingsport and Carter County. I kind of want to, I'm from Carter County. I was born and raised in Carter County, so my heart is here. My biggest focus, I would want to be the women and children's housing in Carter County, but we're really open to the entire Tri-Cities area.
Thank you, Tia. Tia's information is all in the chat for you all to connect with her, and I also shared their Facebook page as well. So next we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Casey Caudle. One of the things that Committee A has been doing for us as a full collaborative is making sure that we have some quality trainings on stigma reduction and lots of different things that are important for us all to know about. And so, as y'all know, last month, Sherry Barnett shared with us about some stigma reduction, and then Casey's going to share with us kind of round 2 of stigma reduction training. So I'm excited to have Casey with us, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm excited. Jillian, if you wouldn't mind making me the host, I do have a presentation. I would love to share it with everybody. Hopefully it'll work.
You should be good to share.
Okay, great. Perfect. Let me know if it does not look good to you all. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to share the entire screen. That way, if I need something, can you all see that? Are you seeing my notes or anything? I write some pretty crazy notes, so I don't want you all to have to suffer through those. But if we're good, then we are good. Yeah, so just to start, I will introduce myself, right? If you can't hear me, please let me know. I'll pull up the chat. That way I can kind of monitor it as well. But my name is Casey Caudle, for those of you who do not know. And I'm the Northeast Regional Coordinator for the Mental Health Association of East Tennessee. I have prepared just a short presentation. I'll try and keep it as short as I can for you today on the stigma of mental health. And I'll share my contact information at the end of the presentation. If you're wanting, a copy of the slides or resources or anything like that, you can contact me directly. Please let me know if you have questions, though, by putting them in the chat. Like I said, I will try and do my best to monitor it. But if somebody sees something, just unmute yourself. I want this to be completely informal, just a fun group of people hanging out. So. To start, though, right before we really get started, just a little bit of background information about MHAET, or the Mental Health Association of East Tennessee. We were founded, I should say, in 1948, primarily focusing in Knox County, Tennessee, but later expanded to cover over 30 counties now across the state. Originally known as the MHA of Greater Knoxville, the Mental Health Association of East Tennessee changed its name to reflect the expanded service area, which now includes the 8 counties in Northeast Tennessee that I'm responsible for, including Carter County. Our programs focus mostly on early intervention, education, recovery, and advocacy. We choose to focus on mental health, substance abuse, and co-occurring issues that affect youth, adults, and families in East Tennessee's urban and rural communities. We do this by offering free anonymous online screenings, access to a peer recovery call center. It's a warm line. It's not a hotline or a crisis line. And then Mental Health 101, which is a free program for school-aged youth that teaches students about mental health, also working to decrease the stigma of mental health. And then trainings like this. We offer trainings that are kind of tailored to whatever it is you're looking for, which is kind of why I'm here today. Today, like I said, we are going to work to decrease the stigma of mental health. So first, we're going to briefly introduce mental health, explaining some internal, external influences. Then we'll begin to conceptualize and define mental health stigma, looking at the origins of understanding mental illness, unconscious bias, which I know Sherry talked a lot about last month, and then the unique impact of the stigma of mental health. Lastly, right, we'll talk about some action steps that Carter County can take to creating a mental health friendly community by combating stigma. Concluding, of course, with any questions that you all have. Okay, any questions before going into it? Any questions? Okay, awesome. Well, I'm going to start out right by asking the big question, what is mental health? When we look at our mental health, what exactly are we looking at, right? When we go into schools, right, with our Mental Health 101 program, I will often start out by playing a word association game with the youth that we talk to. And I'm not going to play that game with you all today. It would be really fun, I know, but what typically happens is I start out by explaining the game. I'll say a word, and you would say the first word that comes to mind. So I say things like sky, and the kids will respond with airplane and clouds, blue, sun, things like that. I say dog, and they bark at me, right? Or they say cat, or tell me the name of their dog, fun things. But then I'll say mental health. And they yell out all the things that they associate with mental health, from brain to thoughts and feelings to depression, anxiety, and other common mental health conditions, to some very stigmatized definitions. And that's when we ask, who has mental health, and explain to them, well, our mental health is made up of our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors. And each of us has mental health, since we each have these three things every single day, right? So our mental health can be influenced by, right, what's happening inside our minds, or influenced by the world around us. The events of our everyday lives have a really big, just a large effect on how we feel, on what we do, right, on how we think about those events as well. And we explain this, right, to the youth that we talk to, and as I'm explaining it to you all now. So some things that happen in our day, like we know are things that we can control, but some things happen and those things are outside of our control. And these can be things that help our mental health or that hurt it. And one of those influences that is unfortunately mostly outside of our control is stigma, right? So stigma, that's what we're talking about today. Stigma is that shameful and negative approach, perspective, or idea about mental health, or what it means to have a mental illness. It's when, someone views a person in a negative way just because they have a mental health condition. There are multiple dimensions to stigma, and although I'm not going to get into all of them today, I do want us to begin to conceptualize and define the term with those in mind. So stigma, as we said, is the process of assigning negative or incorrect labels to individuals. Mental Health America, who we're an affiliate of, defines stigma as negative, judgmental, and or discriminatory attitudes toward mental health challenges and those who live with them. And NAMI, if you're not familiar with NAMI, is the National Alliance for Mental Illness. They say, right, some people describe stigma as a feeling of shame or judgment from someone else. Stigma can even come from an internal place, confusing feeling bad with being bad, right? Let that sink in for a second. Confusing feeling bad with being bad. Oh, it just makes me cringe, right? Stigma can make it hard for people to talk about their problems and get help. It's also a social justice or a societal issue. Stigma can lead to that discrimination, which is when people with mental health challenges are treated differently because of their illness. You see this play out when we hear words like crazy, attention-seeking, insane, or dramatic when describing someone with a mental health condition. When we attribute a negative word or phrase to the symptoms of a mental illness, we are furthering that stigma. And this makes it more difficult for people to reach out for help or talk about the subject in general. People might just feel scared of being judged and feel alone or isolated, which ultimately increases and worsens their symptoms. And of course, you know, the mental health issues. Caroline, yes, I can definitely send a copy of this out. Maybe I'll send it to Jillian and she can send it out to everybody. Thank you. So I wanted to give us just a little bit of time to have a discussion, but I don't think we're going to have time. I don't want to waste y'all's time, and I want to be mindful of that. So instead of a discussion, we're going to do a little quiz, right? And so I want you to reflect on these questions kind of as we go through this quiz, and then the rest of the rest of this kind of presentation, right? Reflect on these questions, but we're going to do a quiz. It's not a gotcha exercise. It's just a quick little quiz that I like. I'm going to go through it a little quickly, but you are going to count up your points for yourself, to yourself, right? So I don't want anyone putting it in the chat. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot or anything, but what you're going to do is just true or false. You're going to give yourself 1 point for every true answer that you choose to give, and 0 points for every false answer. So again, do not put these in the chat, just kind of tally to yourself. The first one, true or false, people with mental illness tend to be dangerous and unpredictable. If you think that is true, then you're going to say in your heads, 1 point, right? 1 point. If you're thinking, nope, that's false, 0 points, okay? The next one, there's no real difference between the terms mentally ill and has a mental illness. Again, true, 1 point, false, 0 points. Next one is I'm scared of or stay away from people who appear to have a mental illness. True or false, I would worry about my son or daughter marrying someone with a mental illness. Again, true or false, I don't know if I could trust a coworker who has a mental illness. Again, 1 point for true, 0 for false. People with a mental illness are lazy or weak and just need to get over it. Next one says people with a mental illness are lazy. No, I just said that. Once someone has a mental illness, they will never recover. And the last one is I would hesitate to hire someone with a history of mental illness. So again, 1 point for every true answer, 0 points for every false answer. You're going to count up your points. 1 point, or like I said, you know, for each question, not just 1 point overall. If you scored a 0, congratulations, right? You're already on your way to becoming that Stigma fighter, and woo, yay, give yourself a pat on the back. The higher you score, right, though, the more likely it is you've had those thoughts, those feelings, those actions that contribute to stigma toward people with mental illness. And like I said, it is not a gotcha exercise. Many of us probably scored high at the start of our journeys. I know I did, right? Definitely so. And all of this plays into that idea of unconscious bias and stigma. And we'll talk about that more here in a second. And this slide has a ton of information on it. I think you all can see it. And I'm not going to sit here and read through everything, so you can read through as you are able, but I will kind of briefly summarize some of this. Basically, stigma is a part of our culture, right? Even the culture of rural communities, we don't often think about. For example, U.S. farmers and rural residents face something called self-stigma. Again, it's one of those dimensions I mentioned, which is seeing mental health struggles as a weakness. Many say they were taught to be tough. They were taught to be self-sufficient, taught not to complain, told they should, not admit failure. And many residents have admitted to feeling, overwhelming shame and guilt if they do end up failing, right? Most don't even recognize their symptoms as mental illness. And these are just some of the many reasons that rural residents don't access, mental health care. But it all, as I said, ends up contributing to that stigma. So then another consequence of stigma is when individuals choose not to seek care because they're concerned about their, I can't say this word well, anonymity, there we go, right? In rural areas especially that have smaller populations. And I don't know how big, Carter County is, or even the city of Elizabethton, but privacy is a challenge, right? And it can also be seen as a perceived threat, especially with those, or, by those with a mental illness. And some providers might be friends or associates, and that fear of judgment or shame or being deemed weak for seeking help with one's mental health keeps many from receiving care that may be available when it is available, right? So again, like I said, lots of stuff on these slides, but I'm not going to cover it all. But it is very important just to start to think about, the fact that, yeah, stigma is real and it has some pretty dangerous consequences. I am going to talk briefly about, the origins of stigma, because I think it's really important to understand, right? One, it's not your fault, right? It's not your fault. And so why is mental health stigmatized? And I'm going to get kind of sciencey here, but I'll try not to as much. One of the major issues surrounding mental health is just the lack of research and comprehensive knowledge that we have about the brain. Our brains make thousands of decisions every single day, right? To speed up this process, our brains identify patterns. In most of our brains, these processes happen without us even being aware. Because of all of these decisions we have to make, we experience something called decision fatigue, which I know some of you are like, yeah, I hate making decisions. The more decisions we make, our ability to actually to make good choices deteriorates. And in order to lighten the load on our brains break down our decision making into two systems. It's fast thinking and slow thinking. And this is coming from Daniel Kahneman's systems of thinking theory. So system one thinking is that fast thinking. It's emotional, it's unconscious, it requires little to no effort. It's automatic, instinctive, fast, quick, those types of decisions, right? So 35,000 decisions are made by you every single day. And a lot of those fall into this system. And so that's whether to take a step right or take a step left first when you start walking. You don't think about that. It just, boom, happens. Whether to take the stairs or the elevator, judging the distance between objects. Could be you hear a loud noise and you spontaneously turn around, right? You didn't choose, I'm going to turn around and look at whatever was making that noise. It just happens. Detecting threats, spontaneous memory retrieval. So like 2 + 2. If I say, what's 2 + 2? You all say, everyone's on mute, 4, right? 4, et cetera, right? So system one, that main task is to make those decisions based on those patterns to prevent brain overload and protect system two. System two, which is slow thinking. This is your rational, your slower, complex decisions, more logical. It takes effort, it's conscious, right? So it's that attention intensive voluntary activity. So it's when you're scanning a crowd looking to find, a woman who's wearing a blue hat. It's parallel parking, right? Which definitely takes that complex thinking. It's comparing pros and cons of an expensive purchase. So like I said, right, when asked 2 + 2, most of us can do the math because it's a decision our brains are used to making using system one, using that spontaneous memory retrieval. However, when asked, what is 24 × 17? that does not lead to an automatic response in most people. We have to do the math to come up with the answer, which takes effort. And that is what system two is. Does that make sense to everybody? I hope so. The answer, by the way, is 408. I know I'm like the kind of person who I would need to know, like, what is 24 × 17? But yeah, 408. So yes. So as we're saying, right, our brains, they find patterns, they make connections, they categorize things and concepts, and our brains, they process things and categorize these things quickly and help to keep us safe, basically, by separating those decisions and those choices into our two systems. So imagine you're walking through the woods and you encounter a bear, right? What do you know about bears? What is your brain telling you? Well, we know that they're big. We know they have sharp teeth and claws. I believe they will probably attack me if I provoke them, right? I know they protect their young, they protect their food. I know to be wary of bears based on the patterns and connections that, my brain has formed as part of that categorization, meaning some generalizations have been made about bears. All bears look and behave the same way. They behave this way because they are bears, right? We don't assign individual identities to bears. The ability to make those generalizations and react instinctively improved the likelihood of human survival way back when. These generalizations helped our species survive. Basically, we make these categories because it's quick. It keeps us safe, right? This process repeats in other ways as well. Our brains categorize and make judgments about lots of things, such as people, right? That's what we're talking about. Our distant ancestors, they got used to doing this because they were competing for some pretty limited resources back then. I'm talking cavemen, era. So like another thing to consider is the fact that our ancestors were having to literally fight off disease, not having built up any type of immunity yet. They didn't know who carried diseases and viruses and how those were transmitted. So avoiding people, much like we avoid bears, right, due to our categorization and generalizations, avoiding people became a pretty common practice linked to human survival, thus creating this fear of the unknown. And so, right, this all is to say, it really just brings us to unconscious bias, right? Unconscious bias is used to describe stereotypes about other people that developed without unconscious thought, or without conscious, thought. These are, our people preferences, naturally preferring people who look like us, who think like us, like the same things. Our brains have evolved to work this way. However, our unconscious biases can be in conflict with our conscious beliefs. So unconscious bias is a natural process. Everyone does it. The process is instinctive, but the stereotypes and assumptions we make are not, right? Unfortunately. So again, I should say, when we ask ourselves, right, where does stigma come from? I'm sure now you all have, all kinds of different things coming to mind. Our socialization experience, people we meet, media we consume, schools we went to, right? All these things, they all combine to form our perceptions and expectations of others. So for example, inaccurate and misleading media representations lead to fear and misunderstanding. In fact, the stigmatization of mental illness is so intertwined with media that researchers have used media articles as a gauge for measuring it, which is really interesting. A news article about let's say, quote, schizophrenic young man or a bipolar mother of two reinforce those stereotypes, especially in cases involving violent crimes, right? A person's mental health is mentioned even when we have no way of knowing whether their mental illness had anything to do with that person's behaviors or actions. So someone's diagnosis is being used as a descriptor or a way to describe that person, which is really unfair. And stigma often is formed in children at a young age, right, without us realizing it. So compared to adult stigma, right, little is known about youth stigma, which we do a lot with youth, which is why I, talk about it. Child stigma development, really, it just all boils down to stereotypes, but also their limited knowledge of appropriate words. So they'll use words like weird and crazy to define, psychiatric symptoms and mental illnesses. So like they don't know what they are, they don't know what they are not. For example, schizophrenia. I can't tell you how many students will say, well, oh yeah, it's having multiple personalities, but no, right? That's not correct. Social distancing from people with mental illnesses, right? Children, I mean, they do all these things. And again, the media has had a huge effect on how mental illness and how mental illness and mental health symptoms are portrayed. And so I've got a clip for you all, and I hope it plays. Let's see if it does. It's just this little tiny one. See if you recognize it. Right? Yes. So, and I don't know, did you all hear sound with that? No? Okay. I'll see if I can, give me 1 second, because I have another video that I want you all to be able to see. Hopefully it'll work for this next video. But anyway, what was that from? 101 Dalmatians. Actually, that may have been 102. I can't remember. 2 Dalmatians, where Cruella, right, the villain, is seen as being arrested or taken away in this van labeled mental institute. And I mean, the stigma around mental illness, right? Again, associating what may or may not be a mental illness with a villainous person with, bad behaviors, again, right? All of this adds to the stigmatized definition that kids are forming, which is often carried into adulthood, and why a lot of adults in the US see people with mental health conditions as dangerous. So these experiences influence how we interact with others, how we understand our complicated world, how we form unconscious bias. And I could give an entire presentation on bias. Like I said, Sherry talked a lot about it last month, so I won't go into a ton of detail. But it's super important just to be aware of your own unconscious bias, and you can test your own unconscious bias. And I'll put the link in that, to that, what is it called? The test at this test at the end of the presentation for anybody who wasn't able to get it last time. But yes, it's important to just be constantly aware kind of where you're at. So yes, adolescents, right, typically they'll test out those adult roles and they'll determine their identities in their teen years, which is also the same time approximately 50% of all mental health conditions in the US begin as age 14. Youth begin to form these negative beliefs about stigma during the time they need to know being not okay is okay the most. And again, it just carries it out into adulthood. So fear and misunderstanding often lead to prejudice against people with mental health disorders, even among healthcare providers. This creates a pretty serious barrier to diagnosis, to treatment or care in our communities. Stigma, it drives silence, right? Most people struggle with symptoms for years. The average is between 10 and 12 years before seeking out help. The cost, logistics, lack of awareness or understanding about mental health challenges can also all be barriers to treatment. Bias, stereotypes, stigma, racism, discrimination, right? All of these things impact access to appropriate and quality mental health services as well. And worldwide, stigma has been identified as one of the leading barriers to service utilization, according to the World Health Organization. The impact of stigma, or the impact I should say stigma has, like on our individuals and just on our community, right, is much larger than we can ever really imagine. So fear and exclusion, bullying, physical violence, harassment, social isolation, fewer opportunities like work or housing, self-stigmatization, waiting a long time to get any type of mental health care, right? These are all consequences of stigma and bias. And I have a short video, and I'm looking for my time. What is it, 12:45? So I think I have time to share the video. I hope so. What time do we go to breakout groups? Is it 1? I don't remember. I don't know. Anyway, well, I'll share the video and hopefully that'll be the case. And it shows a social experiment where interviewers uncover the biases. It's 1. Awesome. Thank you. Great. Then I have time for the video, but where interviewers, they're uncovering the biases that individuals have toward mental illnesses. And so I encourage you all to pay attention, read the subtitles. Hopefully we will have sound. And I think we should by now. If not, like I said, just read the subtitles and really focus on the powerful message that this video has on the stigma that's surrounding mental health. If for some reason it doesn't work, or if you can't read the subtitles, because I know sometimes when sharing screens, it's really slow, somebody put it in the chat and let me know, and I'll just send the video out to you all, okay?
You can be born perfectly rich, have a very good lifestyle, have parents who care very well for you. I don't think mental health issues discriminate against anyone of any race, gender, or social background.
Hi, nice to meet you. Please have a seat.
My name is Nicole. I'll be your moderator for this discussion.
I'm Nicholas. Today, I'm going to ask you a few questions about mental health in Singapore. What do you know about mental illness?
I just know there's depression.
How do you say that? Bipolar disorder.
The wire short circuit, you know.
This guy's crazy, say all these kind of words.
Has nothing to do with me.
Would you hire somebody with mental health condition?
I'll probably, make them work in a, admin side.
Sweeper, cleaner, or some simple job for them.
Either they hurt themselves or they're going to hurt somebody else. Then if you're mental illness, you apply for a job. But who in the right sense will really want to take you?
Would you date somebody who has a mental health condition?
Some of them will get quite manipulative. They'd say like, if you break up with me, I'll cut myself or I'll kill myself.
And then sometimes they tend to post unreasonable things, such as like a small thing that happened, and then they'll make a big fuss out of it.
I cannot handle. I don't know how to handle.
How would you react to, a friend or family member who's diagnosed with mental illness?
The bridging needs to be the family and not a stranger.
我们不是专业医生，我们可能处理不了。
If possible, I will just stay away as far as possible.
这个笑诶，最好是不要靠近他。
I didn't introduce myself fully. I suffer from clinical depression.
I was clinically diagnosed with depression. I'm living in recovery.
And I overcame it. I wrote a letter that I would like you to read out to me aloud.
"12 years is a long time to live with a mental health condition.
In the 12 years that have been diagnosed with depression,
This is what I've learned.
I've learned that the greatest battles we fight are the ones with ourselves.
I've learned that most conversation about employment end the moment I review my diagnosis. I've learned that shame is something society teaches you. I've learned how to say sorry for showing symptoms of my condition.
I've learned that friends can disappear, and I will never hear from them again.
I've learned that family doesn't always know how to support you, no matter how much you need them.
I've learned that hope is a little voice that whispers maybe.
I've learned that recovery is a process. I've learned that one small crack doesn't mean I'm broken.
I've learned that I have an illness, but this illness is not my identity.
so sorry that you have to go through this.
I'm so
Do you have any questions you want to ask me?
Whew. Yeah, that is an intense one, right? I mean, yeah, I hope you all could hear it. If not, the subtitles themselves are enough. I tear up almost every time. We show this video actually to our high school students when we go into schools, and the reactions in the room, you can feel, right? The awkwardness slash the tension and then the relief when, you know, finally you learn, you know, all of these things. So, I mean, it is a very, you know, impactful video, and I can definitely share that for anyone who is interested. Just, you know, send me a message or something. But it's a great video that really talks to the impact that the stigma of mental health conditions and mental illness has on people, on individuals, and why a lot of folks don't talk about it. And so with all this, you know, being said, the $1 million question becomes, how do we fight against stigma? And so as we've seen, the way that we talk about mental illnesses, the messages in movies and television, the news, but also in everyday conversations, can all impact the way we see mental illnesses and recovery. And it's important to have an accurate view of mental challenges or disorders. And often the information we hear is inaccurate and full of stigma. And so while our brain's learning process is hardwired, what we teach our brains is up to us. You are able to make decisions about what you think and how you move forward with those thoughts. And ultimately, we need to challenge those unconscious biases. And so, right, correcting all of these negative perceptions needs to be our goal. And those action, the action items, the action steps from this, the takeaways. So the first one I'm going to address is language. Language has power, right? So you're going to pay attention to how you say things. People often use offensive language about mental health without even realizing it. For example, saying, I heard it earlier this week, this weather is so bipolar. Right? We've all heard somebody say this before. Maybe we've even said it ourselves. But saying something like that will contribute to the stigma of bipolar disorders. Instead, we should describe the weather using actual adjectives, right? One way to combat stigma is by using person-first language when talking about people with mental health conditions. So the words we use can stigmatize or help heal. The use of person-first language can reduce stigma and also the distance for someone between hope and help. So some examples, right? A schizophrenic becomes a person living with schizophrenia. A manic depressive becomes a person diagnosed with bipolar disorder, or whatever those things look like. And this can extend even further. So a homeless person, right? It becomes a person without access to housing. Also, encouraging others to use non-stigmatizing language is one of the easiest ways to fight stigma. And I know that's hard to say, right? Easier said than done, I should say. But I'm just saying, don't let it slide. Don't tolerate prejudice or mistreatment of any kind. When you hear someone say something like, you know, any of the things we just said, catch it, you know, say, hey, I'd really appreciate it if you use person-first language, and give them an example. Another effort to combat stigma, don't separate us from them. So again, test your unconscious bias, take the IAT, right, that test that we talked about, and then make contact, make connections with people in groups that you have an unconscious bias toward. Make that effort to challenge those initial thoughts and start rewiring our brain's systems. You'll begin to gain perspective, meaning when thinking about the role of mental illness plays in someone else's life or in your own life, right? Because self-stigma is a thing. You'll start to consider some of this, right? A person is much more than their diagnosis, right? A mental health disorder is something you have. It does not define you. A person's personality, talents, skills, and compassion are their defining traits, not their mental illness. And so you must treat it the same way you would a physical illness, like diabetes or cancer. Just as a person with diabetes monitors their blood sugar levels and takes medicine to control those, we need to monitor our mental health as well, you know, where we're at on the mental health spectrum, because it fluctuates every single day. And then last but not least is just to be a mental health advocate, right? So you can write to your elected government reps, you can start a blog, you can spread mental health awareness in other ways by being aware of and offering resources and support. A simple way to do this is to continue your lifelong learning, right? So go through trainings like this, right? Stay up to date on new terminology, on those new policies that are being released, new campaigns. I mentioned at the start that we offer all kinds of trainings for individuals and groups of all ages. And yes, I would be more than happy, to present something similar to this or this training, to any of y'all's organizations, community groups, neighborhood groups, anything like that. But yes, familiarize yourself with these types of resources in your community, because right, we at MHAET work with youth a lot. I have a lot of advocacy and education focused resources for youth, such as campaigns, right, that are like with and for youth. The up and coming youth move councils in Tennessee, NAMI, us, all these different resources. Bottom line though is just to become a mental health advocate and continue your own lifelong learning. And that's what I've got. So right before 1, we got a couple minutes for questions, unless there was somebody else who had something to present. I can't remember. But yes, thank you all for your participation and just your willingness to explore the impact that we can have on our own mental health and that of the mental health in Carter County. If you do have questions for the group, feel free to ask now, or if you just have something that you want to ask me individually, let me know and I'll do my best to answer those. But my contact information is up on the screen, and that of our organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Casey. That was wonderful. We appreciate you doing that, and I hope everybody took something awesome away from it. Casey, will you stick your information in the chat just in case anybody wants to reach out to you? I know you had a comment asking for the PowerPoint, so if you wouldn't mind to share that, that'd be awesome. So I know we have one more person who wants to share an update. Sorry, if you want to go ahead and do that, and then I've got one more update too. So anybody else that came on late and wants to share any updates, please feel free to do that now.
This is Tony. You guys can see me. You see me? You hear me?
You're good.
Just got off out of the important discussions with Melissa Hood with continuing education about the conference for the VETSASA, Veterans Substance Abuse Support Alliance, and we're maybe looking at November. We're kind of taking the tip of the iceberg approach that I think would fit this idea of veterans and deaths of despair. So stay tuned, folks. We're looking at a 1.5 or 2-day conference with people being able to put out tables, attend the festivities, and hear from some very smart people, but also interact with some good panelists, and also do some great work in breakouts and help make our decisions about veterans and the ecosystem approach to sort of Maslow's hierarchy of needs with the wraparound services of transportation and housing and food insecurity and childcare and spiritual needs, education, and of course employment. And of course I'm missing some things, but don't get the idea that your organization is going to be driving the bus, but if you're lucky, you'll be on the bus. And this is what I think this is all about with the tip of the iceberg approach. So we're real excited. This is where ETSU is heading, but I think the whole region is going to be heading in this direction. Get in touch with me if you have any questions or you're interested in this. I'll put my information in the chat again.
Thank you, Dr. Delicia. Anybody else have something they want to share before we move into breakout groups?
Yeah, this is John over at Creekside. We're having a free event May the 10th. It's next Tuesday. We're going to have a free barbecue dinner, and we're going to have a suicide prevention talk by Corey Watkins from the Jason Foundation. It's from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Farmers Market in Kingsport, and everyone's invited. You can give me a call if you're going to attend, or text me, and we'll put you down. But it should be a real nice event, kind of a meet and greet. If anybody has any questions, let me know. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Anybody else have anything they want to share? So I had Brandon Young on our agenda today, and he was actually pulled away to do the National Day of Prayer at Carter County Courthouse. So he's not able to be here, but I was going to share for him the reason he wanted to be here today is the Carter Compassion Center is having an open house on May 21st from 10 to 12. And so he wanted to invite everybody to stop by. I will definitely not do the Carter Compassion Center justice compared to Brandon, but it's going to be an amazing opportunity for folks in Carter County to kind of have a one-stop shop for resources. And so they're building that amazing program and really are looking for support from nonprofits in the community. And so he just wanted to encourage everybody to stop by on the 21st. They are in the old Chamber of Commerce building. So if you know where the train is, kind of down near the monument in town there, they'll be in that building. And they are always looking for volunteers and support and resources and all kinds of things. So they do have a Facebook page, it's Carter Compassion Center, and a website as well. So I just wanted to encourage everybody to reach out to him and support that amazing 501c3 that's hopefully coming soon to our community. So anybody else have anything to share before we move into our breakout groups? Yes, I'm going to stick Brandon's info in the chat for you now. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and open up our breakout rooms. As a reminder, Committee A is our Substance Use Committee led by Brooke Jones. Committee B is our Community Action and Awareness Committee led by Scott and Shannon. And Committee C is our Data Collection Committee led by Emily Brooks and Jane Harper. So I will open up the breakout sessions now and feel free to jump in where you feel led to do so.
I don't think we're seeing the.
Yeah, I don't see any of them.
Do y'all see them now?
No.
Okay.
These I don't.
Which one do you want to be in? And I'll just put you
A.
in. A. Okay, I gotcha.
For Committee A, we did a couple of things in our meeting. We mentioned that we are still working on the strategic planning, and we are trying to figure out who's responsible for different things that we're working on as a committee. And we mostly talked about our event that's coming up on the 21st, which is an event kind of in honor of Children's Mental Health Month, Mental Health Awareness Month. And we will be having a movie showing of the movie Encanto at the Elizabethan Library from 11 to 1. And we'll also be providing coping skills toolboxes for all the kids that come. And inside of those boxes, we'll be providing just different coping skills, activities for the kids who come. And so if anyone in the collaborative has a coping skills activity that they would like to provide for these coping skills toolboxes, please let me know. And you could bring it by the Carter County Drug Prevention Office, and we'll add it to the box. So that event is May 21st. So if you're interested in coming, you could check out, there's an event on the CCC Facebook page and the Carter County Drug Prevention Facebook page as well, and possibly even the Elizabethan Library's Facebook page too. I don't know. And you can always check out the Elizabethan Library's website as well. They'll have more information on there.
Thanks, Brooke. And Committee A, would somebody from Committee B like to provide an update?
Good afternoon. Committee B, the Community Action and Awareness Committee, I just went over the strategic plan with them, kind of letting everybody know that Shannon and myself have been working to compile lists for the faith-based community, also schools, to try and get in to the schools for prevention presentations in the fall when schools start back up. We're also planning on emailing, which I have got a list of, there's over 130 churches in Carter County, if you can believe that. And I have that list, and I'm in the process of emailing each one of them and inviting them to a gathering to talk about prevention, to talk about stigma reduction. And Casey just left, which I'll have to email her later for that. Because I believe that with that stigma reduction, unfortunately, stigma is a big thing in our churches. And that is where I think the stigma should be fought first. The prevention more so in the schools, but stigma in our churches. And once I have the emails that go out, we would like to have 3 meetings throughout Carter County in different parts of the county, so that travel would be a little bit easier for some. And then maybe the last meeting in mid-August, that meeting would be in a centralized location where then everybody from the other meetings can be invited to come together as one, and we can have basically like a town hall meeting where everybody's concerns, everybody voices heard about stigma, and any prevention programs or presentations that is needed at that time. Shannon could not be with us this afternoon. He had something to get to. But the strategic plan is that the boxes are being filled and the checklists are being checked. And all I know is we are active in the community. And if the Carter County Collaborative is not active in the community, then the message dies, because they won't hear the message. So I just thank you for everybody's support. Anybody is interested in the Community Action and Awareness Committee, just let me know or let Jillian or Shannon know. Y'all have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Scott. All right, can we have an update from Committee C?
Hi, everybody. This is Jane. Emily sends her regrets. She had something she had to take care of, but we reviewed the strategic plan and who's doing what. So we're busy taking care of business. The goal is for the whole strategic plan to come together with the executive committee before our next meeting so that we can get it out to all of the members of the Carter County Collaborative at least 2 or 4 days ahead of our next meeting in June. So everybody's going to have homework to review it, and then we'll vote to either accept it or not. If folks are uncomfortable with it, then they should vote no. And if we have enough no votes, then we'll open up the discussion to figure out what needs to be changed so that it meets everybody's needs. And we had gotten an update from Dr. DeLucia about things coming together for the VET-SASA conference, Veterans in Recovery with the Ecosystems model. And was there anything else we did?
No, just working on the different parts of the strategic plan that we've
Okay.
come up with so far.
We are recruiting folks who are good with website development. So if you or anybody you know is good at that, we our goal is to build out a portion of the Carter County Drug Prevention website for the Carter County Collaborative that will have resources for all of us to access as they get built by Committee A and Committee B and Committee C. So please check your networks or your timelines and see if you're able to help out on the website. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate all the work you do.
Thank you, Jane and Committee C. All right, well, we will wrap up for today. Thanks everybody for being here. Super excited to see y'all in June for our next meeting. If you know of anybody who's interested in speaking at one of these meetings, please let me know. We are always looking for speakers and folks to share, so please send them my way, or if your organization's interested in being our speaker, let me know, and we will see y'all again in June. Thanks for being here.